I think we have most of the people here. We'll keep an eye out for anyone else jumping in a little late, but yeah. So we want to get right into it. I know you all probably have a lot of questions, and we definitely want to cover as much as we can. So welcome everyone to our Zoom meeting, our open forum for the Midway Sports and Entertainment District. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you all for your participation. We're going to be going through a brief overview of the project first, and then after that, we will jump right into the discussion. So if everyone would just, hold on to their chat, we will, be reading that throughout the presentation, but as we get into the discussion section, it'll be a lot easier to moderate those chats coming in. So I see a few are coming in with people requesting for the recording. Please feel free to shoot me a message at any time with your email for that, and we will make sure to get that down and get a copy of the recording over to you. So with that, I want to turn it over to David to give an overview of the project. And yeah, David, you want to take it over?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Joey. Good morning. We're very excited to have the opportunity to share with you our vision for the Midway site. As you probably know, we're one of the two competitors for the project. Both of these projects are currently on site. The city's created a virtual open house, so you can look at them side by side. But we felt it was important to reach out to you directly. It's the first time we're aware that the city has actually asked for input on competitive proposals prior to the time that a decision is made, and we think that's great. And it particularly so that it's online, because it makes it available for an audience that might not be inclined to be going to community meetings. So we really want to encourage you to participate, because ultimately you guys are the ones who are going to live with this project, whichever project gets created for a long time. So we think your engagement, participation is super important. And that's why we're doing this. It's the nature of this kind of a process that you don't get a chance to really get much community engagement until after you've created the concept. Well, but that engagement really starts now, because we're still early, and there's opportunities for you and your input to shape what this project ultimately becomes. So what I thought I'd do is to walk through the concept, maybe spend 10 minutes or so using some of the slides that are on the virtual open house. And then we're going to open it up to questions. We have lots of team members. Once we complete this initial overview of the project, I'm going to introduce some of those team members. And to the extent that your question relates to a specific component that one of our team members was involved in creating, I'm going to sort of shoot it over to them, because we have lots of talent and creativity that was part of creating this vision, and I want to be sure that those people have an opportunity to share. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here and start to walk you through what we created. This project really is rooted in San Diego, and that's intentional. The people who created this project are local, and we have a great passion for the city and this place. And so we started with asking ourselves, what can we do here that would be unique and singularly San Diego? And what evolved from that was this place we call the Midway Sports and Entertainment District. And it's about creating this beautiful showcase for the brilliance of our San Diego sports and innovation businesses and lifestyle. And we love it here. We take a lot for granted, frankly, that we have all these options for exercise and being outdoors and eating well. And many people don't know that this cluster, this sports active lifestyle cluster, is a big driver, big economic driver. So not only does it contribute to our quality of life, but there's over 50,000 jobs and $6 billion in economic impact. So our thought was, taking the sports arena as a sort of jumping off point, what if we could bring all those companies, those individuals together, and the people like me who are passionate weekend warriors, so that you can come and test and try. And so what evolved from that initial set of ideas was what we believe is really a beautiful master plan that showcases that. These images, I think, Dave McCullough, our landscape architect, was responsible for creating these beautiful images. Gives you a feel of how we're trying to blend nature with the built environment and do so in a way that creates distinctive experiences. We have a number of components that I think are unique. We have a temporary soccer venue, for example, that we can use as a way to energize the site immediately. It's 12 to 15,000 seats, and we'll be there for 7 to 10 years. It's the home of the San Diego Royal, which is our newest professional soccer team. And this can be achieved without any public investment at all. And we like the fact that it can start to transform the perception of the site by activating the site quickly. And then over time, as the team becomes more successful, they would then hopefully move to a permanent venue of 20 to 25,000 seats at another location. We've chosen to renovate the sports arena. We have a 3,500 seat, 60,000 square foot world-class music hall that will be operated by one of the world's largest live entertainment companies. We have parking to support almost 1,500 residential units, about 180,000 square feet of office space, and about 125,000 square feet of retail. Phase 3 has a hotel as a part of it. And part of that retail, as we call it, is pavilions. And the reason for that is the retail world is changing. It was already changing before COVID. It's changing dramatically now. And what we're trying to do is to give more flexibility for the retail mix. And by not investing so heavily in the infrastructure for retail, give smaller companies, entrepreneurial companies, digitally native companies a chance to participate in the project without having a fixed rent or a long-term lease. And we think that benefits that entrepreneurial community, but it also benefits users because there will be a change out of experience. So, you know, a personal trainer who's got a line of product and she wants to be able to show it as a part of, you know, doing her workouts could make that happen within the pavilion retail. And then finally, the park, which is really the heart and soul of this project. This project started as an open space plan. And what evolved from that is this beautiful 12-acre park that really is our central park. And it's the central park for the Midway District. And because a lot of what we've done here really grows out of the inspiration that comes from the community plan. And it was clear in the community plan that creating a new park was one of the top priorities. I'm going to walk you through some of the design ideas. Frank Walden, who was the visionary that helped to put this project together, is here. He's on the call, and I'm going to give him a chance afterwards to share some of his thoughts. But it really starts with understanding what are the surrounding uses. We don't want to get stuck in just thinking about what happens within the 48 acres of sports arena. It's really thinking about how do we make connections with our neighbors in a way that strengthens the entire district over time. Because we really do view this project as catalytic, but it's not a given that it's catalytic. It has to earn that, and it does it by one way is making these strong connections. You know, we're really focused on making sure that we minimize the number of trips. We know traffic is a big issue here. And you do that by leveraging the existing transit, by making smart moves to try to put in very flexible additional transit modes that allow people to be able to walk, to bike, to go to the Old Town Station and take a shuttle. We know there's one in place, but we think that should be beefed up, particularly for events. We're also suggesting here that there's an idea about connecting this project ultimately to the river and maybe even back to downtown, part of this larger Bay to Bay idea that's been discussed over a long period of time. So this plan, this project, if you will, fits into a much larger fabric of development that we see happening, that's sort of going from the more urban downtown to the more sort of natural Mission Bay environment. A part of being catalytic is understanding how do you integrate your project with the neighboring uses. And so what we're suggesting is that Kurtz become a sort of a new main street, a pedestrian scaled street, that it interact with the kinds of hustle and bustle that's happening over in the Craft District, or which we're calling this area north of Kurtz. That it support that, and that over time there will certainly be redevelopment, but there's a lot of good things that are happening there that we want to learn from and integrate into our project. Sports Arena Boulevard will always be kind of the major vehicular front door, and so over time we have some ideas about how we can strengthen that as well. So there's, you know, every edge of this project has been thought about differently, because it's always it's dangerous to think about these projects as being monolithic. This slide we think is particularly important because it demonstrates why we as a community need to remove the 30-foot height limit. You can build everything that we're proposing and it would fit on the site, and that's what the image on the left shows. But what you end up with is essentially no green space, no open space. If you were to build that same 1,500 units in the mix that I described before, but you go 85 feet plus or minus in terms of height, you can create this beautiful amenity, this 12-acre green space that will serve as a gathering place for the community for decades to come. We think that's a really good trade-off. And none of this project is going to happen, nor will our competitors, without the removal of that 30-foot height limit. So one of the questions we should be asking ourselves is, which of these plans is going to be more successful in trying to convince San Diegans to remove that 30-foot height limit for Midway, and for Midway only? And we believe that for many reasons, our plan is much more likely to convince people to remove that 30-foot height limit so that something can actually get built here, something can be developed here. You know, the park, as I said, is the heart and soul. And we love this image because it's got so much variety. You know, we have a water feature here. We have this passive space. We have a beautiful new remodeled arena. You can see the pavilions in the background. So there's opportunities here for every kind of recreation or none. You know, you want to just sit back and enjoy the sun and you know, and kick back on a great San Diego afternoon. You can do that as well. This image shows how we sculpted this land use. It started with the park. We decided to leave the sports arena in place and preserve memory, but upgrade it significantly. And what that results in is some residual land parcels, which is where the development happens. Again, some wonderful images. We like this illustrative site plan because each of these numbers represents an experience in the project. And while we've minimized the amount of retail, which was very intentional, we did that because retail is a big traffic generator, and you know, we're trying to be sensitive to creating the right balance. We're creating the retail that services the project and supports surrounding uses, but we're not trying to create a shopping center. You know, there's plenty of shopping in this area, so we're mindful that, you know, that's really not the main event here. But each of these suggests a different opportunity for, you know, coming and bringing your family and enjoying this new destination. You know, right now the sports arena area is mostly just, you know, it's convenient shopping, right? So this project is a part of changing the perception of what sports arena area can become. Lots of detail about the site plan. This aerial, I guess, you know, if we were to use one image that captures the sensibility, this one I think is a very strong one. Frank, I'm going to give you some time to talk about the evolution of the stitch and how these elements started to come together, but it shows the evolution of the project. Starting with this gateway experience, some images that relate to the mixed-use villages, Village 1 being the, you know, this portion of the project, Village 2 located towards the south. And that's 7 to 10 years down the road. So that land area, which is about 10 acres, would be the area where the interim soccer stadium would go. Additional images that give you some feel for the way the project would be developed. And then this one's important too. We don't actually control these parcels right now because this is on a lease that doesn't expire. This sports arena 4.8 acres site where the restaurants are located, that lease doesn't expire until 2032. But our hope would be over time to come back, and the market will tell us what the right thing to do is to create either housing or some other kind of use along this edge that supports Sports Arena Boulevard. And then these are out parcels located back here. So they're not a part of the site right now, but our goal again would be to be able to control those over the next 10 to 12 years so that the entire project could be built out. These are some images of the soccer venue, which fits into this portion of the site. It can be built very quickly. We actually think that we could start this in 2022. We'll split our entitlements process and attempt, if we can, to get a pretty quick approval that would enable this stadium to start construction early. It only takes about 4 months. It's basically a modular stadium that's put together very quickly. And what we're hoping is that the team could actually start playing here in April of 2022. You see that the stadium is not just for soccer, because the team would have 22 home games plus or minus, but we want to be able to activate the site and activate this specific venue as much as possible. And what this allows us to do quickly is to start reaching out to the community and finding out what sorts of other activities could we put here that would not be so precious that they couldn't move, sort of in the sphere of Kobe's, if you will. And it gives us a chance to try things. So, you know, maybe it's temporary soccer fields, or, you know, maybe it's, you know, a festival that happens, or maybe it's, you know, a local arts group that wants to put on performance. We don't know, but because we have the site and we have the ability to utilize the site for lots of different things, you know, we think it's a good chance for experimentation. This, of course, all happening while we're getting entitlements for the full project, which would start in construction at late 23 or early 24. Here's some additional views. The remodel of the sports arena is a very intentional thing. And kind of think about it this way. If you have a house that's got a great location, but it's old and it needs work, you know, you wouldn't necessarily go buy a new house. If you had the opportunity to remodel that house, and you could do it for less money, and you could maintain what you think is really a great location and some of the memory, that's the direction that you may choose to go. That's what we did here. And so within this proposal, we have very specific set of objectives that we're trying to achieve. Now, we're somewhat limited because we couldn't talk to the teams, we couldn't talk to the city, and they own it, obviously. And those are the kinds of conversations that we need to have to fully flesh out what that program would be. But image-wise, we wanted to change it. We wanted to give it a new feel so that it becomes a great destination for us as visitors, as guests, but also for the teams and for the performers, so that, you know, once again, this, as it was back 50-something years ago, is a destination for great concerts and events. This is the detail that I was describing. So if you go to the city's website and you want to really drill down into what the sports arena is going to be providing in terms of new amenities, this is the location that you would go. So what I want to do is I want to stop the share there. I think that hopefully provides you a good overview. And let me just briefly introduce some of the folks on our team. On the development team, we have Dennis Cruzan, who owns a local company called Cruzan, and he's responsible for the commercial portions of the project. Aruna Doda-Paneni, who is a senior vice president with Bridge Housing, and we've committed to building our affordable housing on site. Michael McCann, who is senior director with Toll Brothers, they're a master developer, and they're also going to be responsible for the residential development on the project. We have a number of design team members. We have traffic expertise. We have our communications team is also on the call. So we brought a lot of the talent that helped to put this proposal together. So Joey, if you've got questions, why don't you just start to fire away?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, David, for that great overview. We were having some questions come in, and I would just like to remind everyone we do only have 40 more minutes remaining on this Zoom call. So, you know, depending on how many questions we get, if we do not have the time to get to all of them, we still want to give you a response and an answer. So please, if you could leave your contact info for us in your comments, so that way we can reach out to you with an answer if we don't have the time to get to those. So that being said, let's jump right into it. So we did get a couple questions while you were going over that, David. The first one that came in, we kind of just wanted to know, is there a representative of the applicable community planning group that's present today? And they were asking if that person could be identified, or just questioning that. So
I don't know the answer. We presented to the Midway Planning Group yesterday, to the board. So Kathy Kenton and DK and Kurt Sullivan and, you know, the board officers of the board were all there. There were, I think, 40 participants, and you know, I'd encourage you to reach out and ask. But both teams presented, actually, so it's a chance for the planning group to see both side by side. So are there any? Can somebody raise their hand if they're part of the Midway Planning Group?
So it looks like we do have someone. Dyke is on this call. He is the vice chair of the Midway Community Planning Group, and so he has identified himself, raised his hand, and yeah, so he is on this call with us today.
All right. Who's that, DK?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want, you can unmute him. He could certainly share what you know, his sense of what of the projects are as they relate to the community.
Sure. Yeah. He just raised his hand, so I'm going to actually go ahead and unmute him right now and see if he wants to provide any comments. So.
Okay. DK.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I wasn't quite paying attention to the question that was initially asked. Was it just to identify myself, or how can
I believe that was the question, yeah.
Yeah, somebody asked whether or not somebody from the Midway Planning Group had been involved in a presentation, and I shared that we actually presented yesterday afternoon. So we don't need to do, you know, any download now, but if somebody wants to reach out afterwards to DK, he can share his reaction to the presentations.
Yeah, happy to provide my contact info for anyone who's interested.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so another question that came in while you were kind of going over the overview is one that came in about the question about parking, and specifically what about ADA in relation to parking. So
yeah, well, there's a little over 3,000 parking spaces. We've really philosophically, we're reducing the amount of parking as much as we possibly can. We have 1,800 spaces in a parking garage to service the arena and the music venue, which will serve as overflow parking for the rest of the time, because those projects have a pulse and they create a lot of shared parking opportunities. The balance of the project is parked a little less than 1 per unit for the residential, about 1.5 per 1,000 square feet for the office, about 2 for the retail. You know, those are thin, but that's very intentional because we're trying to anticipate a future where The use of your car is going to be less attractive, but we have to bolster that, of course, with lots of transit. With respect to ADA, yes, not only is the parking, of course, will be ADA inaccessible, but the entire project is going to be based on universal design principles. So one of our partners in the development of the project is Challenged Athletes Foundation. And we're really proud that they decided that they want to work with us. And our goal was to make sure that the entire project would be accessible. And athletes of every ability or no ability could use this project, and we would, we'd welcome them. So we're hopeful that this project becomes one of the worldwide examples of universal design. Oh, I also want to mention Circulate San Diego is also a partner in helping us to think about mobility, smart mobility solutions. So, not only we're trying to showcase San Diego sports innovation, but we're trying to showcase the best and the brightest of San Diego and have them help us to figure out how do we create a forward-looking, inspirational project.
Yeah, great, thanks, David. And then kind of just following up on that, we had another question come in related to parking. How much is there currently on the site? Do we have an estimate of that, or do we know?
Yeah, there's there's a little over 3,000 parking spaces, surface parking spaces on the site right now.
All right, thank you. So yeah, kind of moving on, kind of going into the current area and the zoning of the area. We had a couple questions come in regarding what does the present zoning of the area look like, and are there any overlays? I think you touched on that a little bit in your overview of the project. But
yeah,
dive into that a little more
right.
detail.
Right. So the existing overlay is a coastal zone overlay, which restricts any of the buildings, new buildings, to 30 feet. So everything that you see is above 30 feet was grandfathered, including the sports arena, which is 75 feet right now. And the hospital building, which is taller, of course, was also grandfathered. So the proposal that's going to come forward, we hope it's going to come forward, will remove that 30-foot height limit, and it will go back to the municipal code, which is the underlying zoning. And the current site, based on municipal code, is 65 to 75 feet. That's sort of the range of height. Having said that, whatever proposal comes forward has to be done as a specific plan. So if we're successful, if we're selected by the city, we'll put together a development plan. It'll specify heights for all the various different uses, and then has to go then through an approval, an EIR process, and ultimately a community review process and a planning approval process in the city council. So lots of opportunities for the community to react once once the project actually is designed and moves forward.
Great. And so kind of going off of into a little bit more detail of the zoning and overlays of the area, we had a question come in that was asking what number of residential units would the current zoning or an overlay allow?
It's a good question. I'm going to actually get Frank and Dave McCullough. What do you guys think? I mean, it's not really clear that there is any specific limit that's placed on the number of residential units, because it was premised under that 30-foot height limit. So as a practical matter, it's probably 1,500 or 2,000. But anyway, one of you guys can respond.
Sure. I think the existing zoning on the site, I think the idea has been in a redevelopment of the community plan that's come out, that the conditions, for one, have changed from what they may have been in the past in terms of the demand for housing there. So part of what we've been doing has been driven more by the recent community plan update and the goal of the city to establish more appropriate housing and to create kind of a mixed-use village on this site. I'm not off the top of my head, I don't recall the exact numbers. Like David said, I don't think it's entirely clear from the original zoning, how that relates to what we're trying to do today.
Well, what we do know is that the community plan anticipates 11,000 units as a total build out for the 1,000 acres plus or minus. So we're at about 1,500, and in phase 4, which are those parcels on Sports Arena Boulevard and the out parcels, we could get up to about 2,000. So we'd be somewhere between 15 and 20% of the total that's anticipated with the community plan. And that's on 5% of the land, right? Because we're 48 acres and it's about 1,000. So we feel we're making a significant contribution to the housing, market rate housing as well as affordable. And we also are trying to figure out what's the right balance, right? And that's always the tricky part, which is where community input is so helpful, because you can help us to think about what other parcels might be appropriate for other kinds of uses, housing units, as the area redevelops.
Great, thanks, David. So kind of jumping into a different question now. This is kind of going off of a similar to the zoning and overlay of the area, but kind of a little more more broadly focused. So I know you showed some graphics for the location of the development, but is there a graphic or anything that you have that kind of would show the whole area that might be subject to redevelopment, or something that kind of examines the Midway District as a whole in terms of what might be coming down the future?
Yeah, let me do this.
And again, I know you have prepared today some some slides and everything that are also available on the city's website for viewing. So so I'll be sending that link. I'm sure everyone has heard the city is doing an open house for the two different proposals for this area, and you can really dive in deep to a couple more pictures and renderings that kind of show.
Good point, Joey. And we've also got some fact sheets that if we haven't made available, we will make available.
And I believe those were attached to the email that we sent out originally, inviting everyone to this Zoom open forum.
Yeah.
That have some good information on them. Yeah. So
I think maybe this one is helpful because it gives the broader context. I mean, roughly we're looking at an area of 1,000 acres, and one of the reasons this image is helpful because, as you can see, the Nabwar site, which is in discussions right now with the Navy and Sandag, has huge opportunity for a consolidation of transit in the area, and it's very close to Old Town and the Old Town Station. So that, coupled with several parcels that are owned by public entities, including the county's parcel, which is 11 acres right next door, and the post office, which is going to be redeveloped with a mixed use. That starts to define an opportunity for some pretty vibrant mixed use kinds of developments. And if we really think about these in a smart way and start thinking about how we can be making connections over time, the character, the walkability, the bikeability of this entire area is going to be dramatically different than it is today.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely a lot of potential for this area. A lot of projects that are in talks. So thank you for answering that. I think hopefully that answered your question to whoever sent that in. But if not, or if you wanted to take a closer look at that again, that is included in the fact sheets. But it's also on the city's website where both of the proposals are located, and you can kind of dive into that and explore some of the surrounding areas and what is proposed for those areas. So while you were going over that, David, we actually had another comment come in asking about. So there is a large homeless community in the Midway District, I believe, as a lot of us know that. Is there any sort of plan or what provisions are being provided or in place for them and kind of addressing that?
Yeah, it's a tough problem. It's a district-wide, citywide, nationwide problem, and we don't have any specific answer. We want to be part of the community coalition that helps to come up with thoughtful responses, which ultimately is going to be, of course, housing and services. There's really no shortcuts to that. We're mindful also, and people have asked us about, how do we, if we're going to build this big park, how do we make sure that it's used by the community, which of course includes homeless as well, but want to make sure that people who come to this park feel that it's safe for use by everybody. So our plan is to create a conservancy that would be responsible for the management and the programming of the park, so that we create activities that are welcoming for everybody. But I wish that I had some magic solution for homelessness. But there are lots and lots of really smart people who are working very hard. And I think as a society, this is something we just, we're going to have to grapple with and continue to try to come up with responses to, if not solutions, at least responses.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what are kind of aspects of affordable housing and market rate housing are there incorporated into this proposal?
Aruna, you're on, right? Why don't you respond to the question about affordable?
Sure. So we have 10% built into the development, 10% of the rental units, which is a little over 140 affordable units. We have it broken out into two buildings or two different projects, and they're both going to be located on site, each in the different villages, as we're calling them in the proposal. And, we're looking at what best fits the neighborhood, the amenity wise. And I think we're going to try to do a mix of family affordable units and also senior affordable units.
Great, thanks. We've also indicated to the city that we're open to exploring an additional amount of affordability, but we don't have in the pro forma right now the ability to provide additional subsidy beyond the 10% Aruna just described. So we're open to being creative, and we're also open to trying to figure out a way to do workforce housing that may not require specific a local or federal subsidy, but through working with the city on the ground lease and reducing costs and smaller units and all of the other tools that we have, maybe coming up with some methodology that gets us, you know, a significant reduction. Michael, so we're talking about housing. Michael McCann from Toll, you're on. Talk about, you know, the diversity of different housing product that you think the project is ultimately going to deliver.
Yeah, happy to. We're thrilled to be a part of this. Toll's goal nationally is to create great communities and special places, and obviously with the access to transportation, jobs, outdoor recreation, entertainment, I really can't think of a better place to create some special housing. With this many units, we would be driven both by just a desire to see the right type of solution, but also economically it makes sense to segment chunks of these into projects that all function well together, all complement each other, and yet serve different segments of the population, both economically or from an income point of view, but also just in a different lifestyles. So it makes no sense to create 1,000 cookie cutter units. Instead, we'll have a broad range of project types, community types, amenity types, and we look forward to digging into that and doing so at a detailed level. Toll brings a national expertise in creating these types of large mixed-use communities. We bring a Fortune 500 balance sheet, and so the access to capital is there to make sure that we can execute very well and immediately on this. But then we also have kind of attained our goal of reaching out to local experts, partnering with strong local partners, so we get the very best of our national presence, but also the local flavor and attack it that way. So not sure if that exactly answers the question, but it's in a special place like this, we know there's going to be renters by choice, and so we're trying to create communities that have a true pride of rentership, communities that people are proud to get to. And then the other part that we're always trying to address is those that are looking for a park and stay lifestyle. The goal, ultimate goal, both from just as a manager of apartments, but and somebody who's trying to do the right thing for the community, is to kind of imagine a place where people park there on Friday. Maybe hopefully they take public transportation, but they show up on Friday, throw their car keys in a bowl somewhere, and then struggle to find them on Monday morning when they got to go back to work because they never even thought about them or looked at them. So we think this is the perfect type of community for that.
Great, thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great answer. So we had a couple more great questions come in while we were going over that, and David, I think this is a great one. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. But someone asked, what are the big differences between the two proposals? The main differences, the guiding factors between ours and theirs. So.
Yeah, well, so glad you asked. So there are big differences between these two proposals. I think I'd start with first that, you know, we've got a 12-acre park, which is, you know, the heart and soul of this project. The competition has 5 acres of what they call park, but it's dispersed, and so you never get that sense of a place that really is, you know, this sort of beautiful defining open space. And, you know, and the Brookfield plan has 500,000 square feet of retail. We have 130,000 square feet of retail. To me, that reflects a really, you know, kind of a difference in philosophy. We wouldn't do 500,000 square feet of retail under the best of circumstances, much less, you know, post-COVID. So, and then retail is the biggest traffic generator. So, that, you know, that's just not for us, the way to think about the opportunity to create a special place. We have a soccer team. That's unique to us, and that will immediately energize the site. I think our plan reflects that we're San Diegans. You know, we live here, we work here, we play here, and the plan, to me, feels like it's grown out of that understanding and that appreciation of what's so special and unique about San Diego. I know that the Brookfield team has people who live here and work here, but Brookfield's not headquartered here. They're a big multinational firm that their residential group is out of New York. They're actually owned, it's a Canadian-owned company. And then ASM Global, AEG, is LA-based. And the references that they use when they talk about this project are like LA Live or, Berlin or some of these other really extraordinary projects that they've done. But to me, those don't really relate to the scale of this particular site and this particular opportunity or this city. There's a stunning lack of detail, and there's another way to say it in their proposal. These guys have been managing the sports arena for quite a long time, and yet they don't even tell us what they're going to do with the sports arena or how much it's going to cost. We were really specific. We said it's $125 million. Here's what we're going to do. And that's not the only area where there's a lack of specificity. And this is, by the way, not just our opinion. Other media that have reviewed the two proposals has said, we're chock full of details. We really tell you what our plan looks like, and there's you're left wondering. This is a project that's led by ideas. When I started the presentation, we talked about the importance of creating a platform for sports and wellness and this extraordinary lifestyle. And when you infuse the project with ideas, and then you end up with a plan that really reflects that. And Frank has done such a brilliant job of incorporating those ideas, and with David's help, it's sculpting a site that then really showcases those ideas in a powerful way so that people can use it and enjoy it. It's very different than a development-led vision that's really about maximizing the square footage. We just feel like the way our plan addresses the street is much more friendly or more elegant or more thoughtful than what they've done, which is create essentially a wall of buildings surrounding the sports arena that just doesn't feel friendly. And then finally, music. Huge music fan. We'd love to have a first-class music venue here, and we have this extraordinary partner who's the operator. And so bringing that to the site, coupled with a reinvented sports arena, those two things are really dynamic, and that will create a focal point for activity that hopefully will energize that portion of the site. And and frankly, it creates the economic ability to do some of the other things, the other amenities in the project that that cost a lot, but also create a lot of community value. So there are a lot of differences, and this is a moment in time where you folks in the community are being asked to weigh in, and hopefully you're gonna seize that opportunity and let the city know what you think.
Great. Yeah, thank you, David. That was a really great overview of the kind of looking at the two from a broad view. And then I really think that the details are really where the proof in the pudding. I mean, it's truly great to see all the work that you guys have done into really thinking out through all the different aspects of this project. So thanks for giving that overview. I want to jump now into, we've gotten a few more questions kind of around transit and what the connections are going to be like. So the first one I want to go over here is, the question is there any talk about adding a connection to the 5 North through this project? And then kind of following up on that, would this project be paying fees into a transportation and infrastructure fund for future project, or how does that work?
Yes, is the answer. We would be paying fees. What exactly those fees would be is sort of TBD. But as a part of the EIR, there'll be a traffic analysis, and no doubt there will be mitigation suggested that will include fees, improvements, and various other fees. On the connections to freeway, John Borman, you're on. Can you unmute? There you go. Yeah,
there we go.
I seem to recall that there's been studies that looked at trying to make a direct connection between this site and the 8 or the 5. And I don't know what the current status of that is, but maybe you know more about it.
I think the quick answer is that's not real realistic. I think that has been looked at a lot. I think there's a small possibility of that, but I don't think that's something we want to count on. And it's not worth I think the cost benefit is not there compared to other things that can be done that are more transit friendly and more bike friendly, more ped friendly, and less car friendly. So that's the quick answer to that one.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good perspective. By the way, for those who don't know John, he's regarded as one of the most credible and experienced guys, transportation traffic guys. And I've had a chance to work with him on other projects, and he always brings a lot of wisdom in this arena. I agree with you generally. I think if we're really looking forward, we're trying to figure out ways that we can leverage the existing infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure investments, trying to get in line for the Caltrans, CIP is, who knows when that might happen. And if it even happened, it would be tens of millions of dollars. I'd rather find more flexible, more impactful ways to spend that kind of money so that we actually, we can, drive people towards existing and more flexible transit options in the near term.
All right, great. Thank you, David. And kind of continuing with this theme of transit and connectivity, have you talked or met with MTS relative to the possibility of a shuttle service to the Old Town Transit Station, or have you really even actually looked at the estimated diff fees that would come from this development or what that might generate?
Yeah, the diff fees are, Nathan, I think there were 38 million. Nathan Mader, who's with London Mader, who did the financial analysis. I don't want to misquote it, but I think it was
we got about $30 million of diff fees.
Okay, all right, so diff fees. So yeah, so it's a very significant number. How those would be spent is, again, TBD. There is a shuttle right now that runs, that's about 11 minutes between the Old Town Station and the Sports Arena site. But that's not really adequate. So what we like to do is to think about a system that has surge capacity. So when there's an event that would have, you know, thousands of people hopefully taking transit, we could increase the number of those shuttles so that they had very short headways. It's like a 22-minute walk. It's not horrible, but you know, for a lot of people that's just too far. But if you could have 3 or 4 buses lined up and they could quickly move people back and forth, we think that that's probably the best way that we can think about right now to leverage the existing transit. And you know, remember that trolley line 21 thereabouts is going to connect up to UC San Diego and UTC. So we think that connection to North County and then the trolley connection that goes through Mission Valley and also to South County is really important. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Warren Smith wants to have his temporary soccer venue here, because he's going to be drawing an audience that comes, you know, all the way from Oceanside on the north to Tijuana and for even further south. So he wanted kind of a central location where people could get there by transit to come to soccer games.
Great, yeah, and I think you touched on this a little bit, but we had a question come in asking, can you just elaborate on how people will use public transport to attend these venues? I think you kind of touched on that just briefly there, but is there any more detail that you would like to share about that?
Yeah, there's bus routes, there's trolley. You know, we're going to try to figure out how we can create sort of last mile solutions, if you will. You know, maybe through bike rental or other ways. We want to make the whole area much more bike friendly. So not just the project itself, but making a really strong bike connection all the way from the river all the way back to downtown. And also that means that we have to have bike storage on site as well, and safe bike storage on site as well. So it's one of the things that working with Circulate would bring. Actually, I think somebody from Circulate was on. Danielle, are you on? I thought I might have seen Danielle Berger, who's with Circulate.
If you are on, would you mind raising your hand for us so we can
unmute you?
Yeah, we can unmute you if you want to chat. But yeah, while we're waiting on that, we'll keep rolling here with the questions. There was a question that came in, kind of, what is the plan to grow the following for SD Loyal, and do we have a plan in action for how they're going to immediately ignite that site? Kind of like how you talked about the site is going up or the stadium, excuse me, is going up on the site pretty immediately. But what is the plan in place for kind of using that team and using the Loyal to ignite the area instantly?
Yeah, Warren, I don't think Warren's on. I think he was flying this morning. Warren Smith is the CEO of the president team. But I'll tell you what he's been saying, which is that his plan has always been that he'll spend 2 to 3 years at Torero Stadium, which of course is very close by, and it's 6,100 seats. And Warren is on. Raise your hand if you're on there, Warren. Maybe I've just missed you.
I'm not seeing him here, David.
Okay, all right.
It says administrator. He's under administrator. And
so there he is.
Get off mute.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, let's go ahead and unmute there real quick. All right.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome.
Forgive me, I'm not a very good Zoom user, so I always show up as administrator. So listen, you know, this site is so appealing in so many different ways to us. First of all, we want to make a difference. Obviously, a park like a 12-acre park that's centralized really will ignite and serve this entire area. And to us, to be able to deliver something like that is key. But for us, you know, ultimately, all of our research shows that we need between a 12 and 15,000 seat venue for the market today. Unfortunately, there just wasn't one that size. So we chose to play at Torero Stadium, which is awesome, great soccer experience, but very limited in what we can do. So back to your point about what we're trying to do, and keep in mind, I've done this before. We built a facility in Sacramento, which ultimately led to them being awarded the Major League Soccer franchise. And what we were able to create on the California State Fairgrounds was a sense of place and an experience that is truly unique. Yes, it's a soccer match, but it's part party, part family gathering, and part soccer match all together. And so we're creating an event around, an event, and frankly, entertaining people. And the other thing for us in operating the Portland Timbers in Portland, again, another team that went to MLS, we learned a lot. This is the average ticket buyer in professional soccer today is 28 years old. They do not want to take their cars. They actually, 60% of the traffic that came to the stadium in Portland came through alternative transportation means. Granted, they had a light rail stop right next to the stadium, which obviously helped, but bikes, walking, streetcar, leading to the light rail, everything kind of added into one. These young people want to be responsible, but they also want to have a good time. So being that close and 22-minute walk in sports is not a big deal. It because, I like to say in California, we don't have a parking problem, we have a walking problem. Because we all try to find that space closest to wherever we're going. But
right.
So the Navwar site, long-term, I love this whole area for our potential long-term stadium. We just wouldn't be able to, David and Toll and everyone else wouldn't be able to afford what they want to do here if we're going to take up 10 acres of a 48-acre site. So that's why the agreement to actually allow us to be there for 7 to 10 years. But ultimately, it's about creating an experience. It's about creating something special and unique. Now, keep in mind, this is a facility that in Sacramento, just as an example, we have, 8 concerts a year. Probably wouldn't do that because we have concert venues here, but we have international rugby matches. We've had high school football. We've had graduations. We've had just Joe Biden, not Joe Biden, what was the other one? Bernie Sanders rally. So ultimately these venues get used for all types of purposes, and it feels a little bit, it feels like a permanent stadium, but it's really modular and a erector set project that can pick up and move. But hopefully that answered your question, but we can be more excited about what this means for building the club. And one last thing, we will build our own facility in the 25,000 seat range, or we will partner with SDSU in their new facility. It's 35,000. The challenge is for us to move into those, we actually have to, do a proof of concept and make sure that we take the risk out. Going from 6,000 to 35,000 is a huge risk in sports. But if we can go to 15,000 to 35,000, it eliminates a lot of that risk. So, long-term, it's about building something that's long and lasting. We picked the name, which says we'll never move. Today, this is San Diego's club, and we want to do what's right by the community.
Thanks, Warren. Hey, I want to make sure that Dennis Cruzan gets involved in the conversation. It's something you were saying, Warren, about experience. I know, Dennis, you've been talking about how, the whole real estate world is now changing, and now it's not just about space, it's about quality of environment and experience. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, I'll touch on that, David. Thanks. And as Mike and Warren and all the rest of the room has said, we're very excited to be part of this exciting project because, our view is very rarely does one have the opportunity to be able to transform someplace. And it's not only transforming the site, but more importantly, and hopefully the community sees this, it's really to transform in a very positive way, kind of everything around it. So that's always, as a long time for all of my life in San Diego, that's a thing that we take very seriously, but it's also something that is really exciting to be part of. So what we do is we're really ostensibly involved in more of the commercial side of this project. So that's the office and retail. And, about 15 years ago, we really started noticing a trend in how people office. Obviously now with COVID, nobody's officing anywhere, but for the last 15 years, it's really changed dramatically. And it's largely driven by technology companies and their desire to attract and retain key talent. And we see this site ultimately upon its build out as a place that can do just that. Because when you think of what employees want and how we've changed how people office, it's really just the meshing and the merging, if you will, of living, of working and playing and fitness and wellness and retail and shopping and entertainment. It's all kind of meshing all together. And now with COVID, I think we all believe that long term, although we don't know for sure, but one could argue that this will be even, there'll be even a greater need for this experiential office and commercial space. So that's what we do. And again, we're very excited to be part of it and ready to take the next step.
Great, thank you. Hey, I want to introduce another team member. We were talking about activation. Brandon Lowry's expertise is in sports and in sports activation, and we were lucky to find him through San Diego Sports Innovators. Brandon, just talk a little bit about how you imagine the park space might get activated with various events, competitions, kind of fun stuff for the family.
Yeah. Brandon Lowry here. Yep, one of the directors at San Diego Sports Innovators and a couple of other organizations. But yeah, we spend a lot of time on community development, right? Community development and programming. Programming is a big category that we focus on, not just major massive events. We are involved with like the X Games and the Dew Tours and the Street Leagues and those programs, but focusing at a community level is also interesting, right? Super integrative, super interactive, local brands, local organizations, community is the North Star, right? Even our bigger events, it's all about community programming and community involvement. So having spaces like this is, in our opinion, like where the category is going, right? It's not necessarily just large scale events. It's more community integration, product exposure, right? Athlete integration, having that more intimate experience with the community and the athlete and the brand. That's kind of where the space is going. That's how impact happens at a commercial level for the corporate, for the brand, for the athlete. So these spaces are super interesting to us. Programmatic development is front of mind for all organizations, right? That's how they build fan engagement and customer loyalty. So to have a space like this in San Diego where this is the culture, right? And to be able to deliver a program that's authentic to San Diego, not only will it support and I think stay aligned with the community, the local community, but as we have tourists and visitors and family and friends coming to town, they'll be able to have a sense of that San Diego authenticity, right? And I think a lot of people come for the sunshine and the outdoor experience, and that's what, in our culture, the active and lifestyle sport industry, like that's what we focus on, right? Those community programs and that, community engagement. And a site like this kind of sets us up for success.
Great, love it. Thanks, Brandon. Joey, we've got 4 or 5 minutes. Any other questions that we can respond to?
So we just had one more kind of comment come in regarding, you're going back a little bit to the transportation. And I know we kind of covered this a little bit before, but I just wanted to kind of acknowledge this comment that came in. The 22-minute gap between the Old Town Trolley Station and the sports arena site. For a lot of people, I know that some people would choose to walk that, but for a lot of people, I know that's too far for a practical walk for them in this community. And given, everything, I know you touched upon more shuttle lines, going from the Old Town Trolley Station to the site, but I know that is a concern for a lot of people, and maybe there's more emphasis on implementing that. Or I also wanted to ask you, what kind of, do you know if what Brookfield is kind of planning for their proposal to implement something, or if anything, what they're kind of addressing the gap in transportation between the Old Town Trolley Station and the sports arena site, if they have any?
I don't know that piece of their plan. I also, it seems to me that that a bike share or a bike program that you could pick up at the Old Town Station and drop off at the MSED site, that would also, for some people, might be more attractive than walking. But I do think that bolstering the shuttle services for most people is probably going to be the best way to do it. We haven't worked out all the details, but there are companies that we can work with that have the ability to create, let's talk about surge, so that we have very short headways when we're having events.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that came in. And so it actually looks like we got one last minute question that's coming in here. And I know we're running low on time here. So if you do have any more questions, please feel free to shoot those in the chat real quick and include your contact. If we do not have the time to get to that today, of course, we will reach out to you and respond with an answer. And then again, if you want to have a recording, the recording of this meeting here, we will be distributing that to people who request that, for them to then go and distribute that to their board or their groups or organizations or what have you. But so we had just one question come in here. Why isn't the arena going to be one of the NBA or NHL quality in hopes of attracting a major league team to our city? And that was kind of can you touch on that a little bit? I know we have the Loyal here, which is a great soccer team here in San Diego, great following, and but let's just touch on that a little bit. Yeah.
Let's just cut to the chase. If we had a very wealthy group or individual who wanted to either purchase an NHL NBA franchise or spend $1 billion buying a team, and they were clamoring to come to San Diego, you know, we'd be right there shoulder to shoulder with them, trying to figure out how we could create an arena that would work for that kind of a franchise. But we don't. And the idea that we would build an arena on spec and then try to get a team to come, that's just not going to happen. And by the way, arenas don't make any money. So this is not like, you know, there are a lot of developers clamoring to try to figure out a way to build arenas. They don't make money. So, and everybody who we've talked to who was even thinking about building an arena said, well, it's 300 to 350 million, and half of it's going to have to be public dollars. That's just not in the cards. Let's not kid ourselves. So we're trying to deal with the reality of what we've got. And by the way, the existing arena has got decent bones, and it does decent business, but it's not a good guest experience. So the money that we're spending is very focused and surgical, and we think it will create a great experience for fans and for the team and for performers. And you know, I think the remodeled house is going to be something that all of us ultimately are really excited about and proud of, because we're doing $1 billion development. Of course, we want to have a great venue right in the middle. We wouldn't even think about doing a project without doing something very special for the arena, but the new arena just doesn't work economically.
Great. Well, we are at 10 o'clock. I would like to thank everyone again for their participation, for joining us on this this open forum. It was really great to hear all these questions and comments, and thank you again to the team for really providing such a great responses and overview of the project. It really sounds like a pretty striking team and everything. So I would like to thank everyone again, and wish you all a good rest of your day. So
all right, thanks, Joey, and thanks for everybody for participating. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.